Okay, Quizzy part 2. All right, so you should have this written down in your notebook, okay? So we don't know who the characters are yet. You're gonna choose, okay, the characters. We know that this guy ends up being Superman. How long?
One day.
One day. So my setting, we know that the when part of the setting is 1 day. We don't know where. Okay, you get to choose the where. And you get to choose what happens. And then guys, the solution, you guys, how long is he Superman again?
1 day.
1 day he is Superman. So somehow he ends up back to himself, right? Okay, so let me read an example to you of a former student. All right, here we go. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Yes. No. Yep. All right. Bruce Brown, the loudspeaker yelled throughout the doctor's office. Sheesh, I mumbled. I stood up and walked to the doctor's exam room, still mumbling, and sat down. The doctor finally came in and sat down, taking her sweet time. Then she took out a ginormous needle with blue stuff. And then out of the blue, she started screaming her name 1,000,000 times in my face, like I was deaf or something. Penelope, Penelope, Penelope. I guess that was to distract me, because Penelope stuck the needle in my arm and I suddenly felt funny. Penelope grinned and told me that I was Superman, but only for the day, and that the shot would wear off. I screamed and apparently flew out the window. I was still screaming when I saw an old lady slowly walking across the street, and a car was about to hit her. I zoomed down and scooped her up and set her down on the sidewalk just in time. She thanked me and I was on my way. About 3 hours later, I heard a cat meowing for help. I flew over and lasered the tree down and caught it just in time. The sun had gone down, so I flew home to have a good night's rest. In the morning, I was back to normal. Penelope was right. The shot did wear off. So she needed one more event, okay? All right, here we go. You wouldn't know anybody. All right. Here we go.
This one's supposed to be a little bit of a short one.
Not necessarily, you'll see.
Yeah, almost.
The weird day. Steve ordered a flu mist a few weeks ago from his doctor's, and that day he was supposed to go get it. At the doctor's office, he saw a serious-looking lady with a name tag. It read, Sally. Hi, I'm Sally. I will be in room 8 with you soon, the lady remarked absent-mindedly. Steve headed to room 8 and waited impatiently about 3 minutes before Sally came in. In her hand was a gigantic shot. You are incredibly fortunate. This is not any shot. This will make you Superman for the day, she explained. Why me? There is already a Superman, Steve asked nervously. Superman's sick, she replied. About 3 seconds later, she stabbed the shot into his arm. When he woke up, he felt weird. He looked out of the window and saw an airplane out of control, so he zoomed out the window before he even realized what he was doing. He was trying to save the airplane, but instead, he was bumping into buildings nonstop. He crashed into a balcony jutting out from one of the buildings and was knocked unconscious, falling to the ground like a rock. Ouch, he yelled. Then the out-of-control airplane zoomed past him. It was heading south. Because of his unskilled flying, he decided to follow on foot, but he couldn't see the airplane, so he reluctantly flew. He zoomed in the air and saw the airplane. When he reached it, he tried to grab the airplane, but he missed it. What he didn't know was that he was about to run into a rocky cliff. He had no control because he was going so fast. When he ran into the cliff and a connected bridge, they violently shook like an earthquake and suddenly stopped. Whew! He exclaimed. After a few seconds, the bridge and the cliff's giant boulders fell on him. Ouch! He screamed. He heard a cat screeching. I know, right? He heard a cat screeching, and he flew like lightning to the tree despite its distance. He saw the cat and started to stare at the frightening looking creature. Steve slowly held out his hands, and the cat quickly bit his arm. That's the second time my arm is in pain today, he yelled in the cat's face. He flew to Sally. How many more hours until the day ends? I just got attacked by a cat, he yelled. Only one more hour until you go to sleep, and you can be ordinary again, she shot back. Steve zoomed faster than ever to bed. He dreamed he would never go back to that nurse ever again. Okay? Getting some ideas?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, you ready? Let me read another one. Hi, my name is Fred, and I'm going to tell you about the adventurous time when I turned into the marvelous Superman. You may not believe me, but I, Frederick E. Simpson, vowed to never ever lie. At least try not to. It all started in late fall on my way to the Scott and White Hospital. I needed to have a checkup and have my neck shot. Even at age 13, I dreaded going to the doctor, especially when I received shots. Once I arrived, I asked the busy lady at the counter to see Dr. James, but she explained that he was feeling ill and Dr. Betty Johnson was taking his place for the day. So I thanked the lady, walked to the crowded waiting room, plopped into the nearest chair, and waited till Dr. Betty could see me. Finally, one of the pretty nurses called me to follow her to the room that was available for the doctor to see me. Dr. Betty was an old, plump woman with brown hair and glasses. After the nurse left, she smiled sweetly at me and introduced herself. First, she asked me to sign a few things and asked me questions. Then she set down her purple glasses to clean them and didn't put them back on. You know what's going to happen?
Yeah. No.
If she didn't put her glasses back on, what do you think?
She's gonna come talk.
But I didn't bother asking why. At last, she opened a drawer and selected a needle. In fact, it was the biggest needle I'd ever seen. It was a big glass tube with a metal point and green bubbly liquid floating within the glass tube. The next thing I knew, Dr. Betty pricked the sharp needle in my thigh. It felt as if a tiger was piercing its massive claws right through my skin. On my way home, I heard a cat from about a block away. I found a black and white kitten stuck on one of the highest branches of a tree. As I jumped to grab the kitten, I began to float and did a flip in the air. I was flying. So did he go to the doctor to get a Superman shot?
Yeah.
No, he didn't. He had no idea that that's what happened, okay? Once the kitten was safe, I flew to the park to practice tricks. I did a cartwheel. I began to smell smoke and heard people yelling for help. So I stopped flying and sprinted toward a rectangular building. It was lit with burning flames, flickering ferociously. I had a silly thought that I was becoming Superman. So I started thinking about all the superpowers that he had. The first one that came to mind was ice breath, and I quickly started thinking up a plan. I began blowing at the building as hard as a hailstorm. In no more than 5 seconds, the building was glistening like freshly fallen snow, and the workers started to cheer. After taking in all the victory, I flew home for a nap. But it doesn't tell that he woke up his normal self, right? So what do you think happened with the nurse on that one? Did she purposefully grab the one that had green bubbly liquid? Why did she grab the green bubbly liquid?
Because I didn't have it on.
She didn't have her glasses on. She couldn't see. She was blind as a bat. So are you getting ideas? Okay. All right. You ready? Earl the Awesome. Finally, the day arrived for me to receive my vaccine so I could go to Africa during the summer break. Because you know, guys, you have to be vaccinated sometimes to go to other countries.
Why?
Because they have illnesses we don't. And if we don't get vaccinated, we could get sick.
My mom does.
I drove to the Caprock Emergency Center and parked at the front of the enormous building. I walked to the counter and shouted, "Hi, I'm Earl Swanson and I'm here for my vaccination." Mr. Miller couldn't be here today, so Mrs. Tubman will fill in for him, grunted Mr. Bluff. I journeyed to room 8, and when I opened the door, I saw an elderly woman sitting in a plastic seat. "Sit up and don't slouch, child. I have a busy day," she ordered.
Oh my god.
I know, right? I did as she said, and she grabbed the nearest see-through needle and stabbed it into my arm. A strange, sensational feeling flowed through my body. I drove to the airport for my trip and fastened my seatbelt. The pilot drank too much soda for lunch and started to fly the plane way too fast. All of a sudden, he let go of the steering yoke, I guess it's called a yoke, I don't know, and started to drink more soda. We were heading straight for the Indian Ocean at full speed. Suddenly, I felt that I needed to save the plane. I rushed to the door, opened it, and started to fly. I flew under the plane and started flying toward Africa. I rested the plane on a bed of flowers, and everyone cheered for me. I suddenly heard a piercing shriek that came from a young woman. I flew to where she was standing and found out she was cornered by a hungry lioness ready to pounce at any moment. I started to use my laser eyes, and I lasered right through the lioness's heart. "Oh, thank you," she cried. Night started to come, so I headed to the Holiday Inn for the night. When I woke up, I felt normal again. Okay, so your job today, hold on, your job today is you're going to brainstorm for the next couple of minutes on what you would like to write about. Listen, just listen. And then tonight, you're going to skip lines in your composition notebook, and I want you to get about halfway through the story.
Okay.
Okay? Whatever that is, about halfway. So remember, you need to have 3 events, and then at the end, you need to wrap it up. So your solution is what? What is your solution for everyone in here?
He goes to bed.
He goes back to normal. He turns into himself somehow. Okay, he turns back into himself. Scarlett, do you have a question?
Yes, can you make that person a girl, or does it have to be a boy?
Boy. Prompt is a boy. Yes, Annabelle.
So there's like a bug.
Okay, well, Quizzy, happy writing.